Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at and rank some of the best budget defensive options. I've rated each player in 4 different categories to come up with a final score, and I'll be going into more detail about why I think these categories are relevant later in the video. Make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video to see how I rank each player respectively. Before we get into it, like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to get to 100 subscribers before the start of the season, which is exactly 3 weeks away, and would really appreciate the support. Let's get into it. I'd like to add that to be considered a budget defender, I've only included players priced at 4.5 million or less. Despite the low price, we've got some potentially really good assets to choose from. The first is Crystal Palace's Andersen. If we look at Andersen's stats from last season, we can see he's an absolute nailed starter. He started all 38 games and played 3,416 minutes. That's exactly what you should be looking for in your budget players. You may have them rotating with other options when they have a tough fixture, but when you need them, they're guaranteed minutes. Palace kept 10 clean sheets and Andersen would have been a huge part of that. Only 4 teams conceded less goals than them last season, and 3 of those teams ended up in the top 3 spots. He's a centre-back, so he won't be getting as many attacking returns as some of the full-backs, but he chipped in with 2 goals and 3 assists from an expected goal involvement of 3.83. Let's run through the categories I've considered and how I've calculated them all. All the categories are scored between 1 to 10 to give us a final player rating. First is fixtures. This is pretty self-explanatory. The harder the fixtures, the lower the score. If you were unlucky enough to be playing Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and Man United away in your first 5, you'd score a 1. If you manage to score the 3 promoted teams at home, you'll probably score a 9 or a 10. Second is the player's availability, i.e. how many games and minutes they've played, and how many of those were starts. This will also take into account games missed through injury. The more available player, the higher the score. Thirdly is their value. This I've just calculated off their points per 90. I did toy with points per million, but that doesn't seem to be a commonly used stat. Let me know if you think it would be useful in the comments below. And the last metric is their attacking contribution. Being as they are defenders, this will normally be the lowest score, but I can't stress how important it is to have defensive assets that get attacking returns. There are less and less clean sheets in modern football, so targeting attacking defenders is just as important as choosing your actual attacking players. If you'd like a video ranking some of the budget midfielders and attackers, leave a comment down below. Back to the rating. I've scored Andersen a 7 for his fixture run in the first 5. Bit of a mixed bag with Brentford, West Ham and Leicester being some of the fixtures to target, and Chelsea and Man United may be the ones to rotate. He's a 10 for his availability. As we said earlier, he started all 38 games last season. 3.38 points per 90 and overall scored 121 points is great considering the 4.5 cost, and I have ranked his value at 8. This may seem a bit harsh, but consider somebody like Trent to be a 10 on attacking contribution. I think a score of 4 for him is correct. Next up is Newcastle's Dan Burn, again costing 4.5. Not much between Palace and Newcastle defences last season, conceding 62 goals. Burn, however, did not play every game. He started the majority, 32 games, and played 2,732 minutes. He scored 97 points overall last season, with a points per 90 of 3.2. Again, very respectable considering the price. He also chipped in with 2 goals and 2 assists through the season, although he did underperform his expected goal involvements of 4.47. A relatively nice first 5 fixtures with Southampton on the opening weekend at home, as well as Bournemouth, Wolves and Fulham. One more thing to consider with Burn is his competition. Newcastle have brought in a couple of young fullbacks in recent years, in Hall and Livramento, that may challenge for his position. Aston Villa's Konsa started 35 of 38 games last season, playing 3,073 minutes. So again, pretty nailed in a very strong Villa team. He scored 91 points last season with a 2.67 points per 90. That's slightly less than Andersen and Burn. He also has less of a threat going forward, at least shown by actual returns, getting 1 goal and 1 assist. If he achieved his expected goal involvements, he'd be very similar to Andersen. The fixtures are very nice with West Ham, Leicester, Everton and Wolves in the first 5. Arsenal are probably the only team to worry about in game week 2. Moving on, we have our first £4 million player in Leicester's Wout Faes. Obviously Leicester were promoted from the Championship last season, and although Faes has played in the Premier League before, we'll look at the stats from last season. He started 43 of 46 games, and Leicester had a great season defensively, conceding the fewest goals of all teams, leading to an expected goals conceded of just 0.92 per 90. Fixtures are always going to be tough for a promoted team, but it could be worse. They face Spurs, Fulham, Villa, Palace and Everton in the first 5. Let's have a look at how we scored the first few players. Burn and Konsa both have fixture ratings of 8 and Faes a 6. I've given Konsa and Faes availability score a 9 given the amount of minutes they played last season, and Burn a 7. Value is based off points per 90, so naturally Faes doesn't have any data from last season. Remember though, he is 0.5 cheaper than the others. Burn has been scored a 7 and Konsa a 6. In terms of their attacking returns, Andersen, Konsa and Faes all have 4 and Burn gets a 5. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video to see all the final scores. Next is another promoted player. Southampton's Harwood-Bellis is also 4 million. He started 41 games last season, playing 3,501 minutes, with 5 attacking returns, 2 goals and 3 assists. Southampton's defence didn't quite match Leicester's. They conceded 22 more goals, shown in their uxjtwg per 90 of 1.37, compared to Leicester's 0.92. Mixed bag of fixtures, having to play Newcastle and Manchester United in the first 5, but also Brentford and Forest, and the other promoted team Ipswich. Van de Ven next. He could be a great way into the Spurs defence at 4.5 million after the price rises seen elsewhere across the back line. He had an exceptional start to his life as a Spurs player. They kept 4 clean sheets in the first 10, helped by Van de Ven. Unfortunately for him and Spurs, he suffered a hamstring injury and was ruled out for 8 weeks, which explains his minutes. When he was available, he started 27 games. He also managed 3 attacking returns from just 0.94 expected goal involvements. Fixture run includes a North London derby the week after a trip to St James's Park, which could be tough, but they also play Leicester, Everton and Brentford. Manchester United's Martinez is next. He could be another cheap way into a top 6 defence, costing just 4.5. Last season, Martinez was sidelined for the majority of the season, so I've considered the stats from 2022-23 to get a better representation of his capabilities. This will affect his availability score, of course, but if Manchester United can get a solid first-choice back line together this season, he could be a great asset. In the 2022-2023 season, he started 24 games, scoring 81 points, and had a points per 90 of 3.45. Again, he's a centre-back, so his attacking threat is not so great. He only managed 1 goal involvement. Being on the short side, he's not one for United to target at set pieces either. Let's take a look at some more scores. Bellis and Martinez both have fixture ratings of 7 and Van de Ven a 6. Due to their injury record, both Martinez and Van de Ven being given a 6 for their availability and Bellis an 8. When they can get a string of games together, their value is actually quite good. Martinez is worth an 8 and Van de Ven with a 7. When it comes to attacking returns, both centre-backs score a 2, but Harwood-Bellis gets a 6, the best so far. Moving on, we've got Mykolenko. Other Everton assets like Brantford have had a price increase this season, meaning Mykolenko could be a great way into the good defence. Despite Everton's position in the table, they are actually one of the best teams defensively. It was scoring that was their issue. Mykolenko started 28 games last season, scoring 101 points, with a points per 90 of 3.68. The highest of all so far. He also scored 2 goals and got an assist, but if Everton as a whole can improve their scoring record, Mykolenko's involvement could rise. 3 nice fixtures in Brighton, Bournemouth and Leicester, and 2 trickier in Spurs and Villa means he could be a good rotator. Our last budget defender is Fulham's Robinson. He was actually nailed last season, starting 37 of 38 games. He scored 104 overall and was involved in 6 goals. You may think that 6 goal involvements will warrant a better points total, but all of Robinson's attacking returns were assists, and for a defender, each assist gets you 3 points less than a goal. He did outperform his XGI of 2.06 massively, however those returns are heavily favoured towards assisting. That's all the defenders we're going to look at today. Let's see who comes out on the top. And Andersen is my number 1 defender, all things considered, with a final rating of 7.25. You just can't look past minutes on the pitch with these assets. You need guaranteed starters, and he's the most nailed of the lot. We have 3 players in joint second with ratings of 7. They're the new boy Harwood-Bellis, Fulham's Robinson and Dan Burn. Even with defenders, you've got to look to optimise each position, and these three just have the best attacking threat. In 5th is Konsa, with a rating of 6.75. Some of the best fixtures are nailed again, but the attacking returns aren't quite there. 6th, we've got Faes. It was always going to be tricky for a centre-back of a promoted team to be highly rated. He scores a 6.33. Sure to play though, and has previous experience in the league. 7th is Mykolenko with a rating of 6.25. By no stretch of the imagination does this mean he's a bad asset. Pretty consistent across the board with no standout strength. Everton's lack of goal threat overall maybe has him drop down. The last two spots go to Martinez with a rating of 5.75 and Van der Ven with a rating of 5.25. Despite probably playing for the two best teams out of the players we've covered, these guys just haven't been able to stay on the pitch. If they can stay fit for a whole season, then they could be the best of the lot. So that's it for the video. If you got this far, thanks a lot. And don't forget to like and subscribe, it would be really appreciated. Follow me on Twitter in the link below for more content, and check out my previous video here to see what your team could possibly look like if you went without the two main men, Haaland and Salah. I'll tell you now, it's good. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.